What's up guys, Gray here, welcome back. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at two of my favorite pulse rifles in the game right now. Both of these pulse rifles are rapid fire pulses and they're both available in the game right now. The big difference between the two of these is that one of them is a kinetic and one of them is an energy weapon. I'm talking about the Peace of Mind kinetic pulse rifle and the Darkest Before energy pulse rifle. Both of these are really strong and have different perk options that make them really strong for certain game modes or certain playstyles. I've been messing around with both of them and using them a lot, and I wanted to make this video to sort of compare the two of them because they are both a little bit of a grind if you want to get your hands on them. So hopefully by the end of this video you'll understand which one you want to go after personally, or maybe you'll want to go after both. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. If you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor, leave a like down below and smash that subscribe button for me. But let's start off by taking a look at the Darkest Before energy rapid fire pulse rifle. Now the Darkest Before is a bit of an interesting weapon. This was actually available from Trials of the Nine back in vanilla Destiny 2. It was reissued into the game and sort of brought into the Prophecy Dungeon when they updated the loot pools there, and now it's available from the final boss at the end of the Prophecy Dungeon. Along with that, of course, the weapon came with new random rolls, giving it some new perk combinations that were never previously available on this weapon. Now, if you were around for the vanilla Destiny 2 days, you remember the static roll on this weapon was slide shot and full auto. And it was very strong back in those double primary days. It was a very compelling choice for things like Trials of the Nine, back when we had that double primary meta. Now fast forward to today, and we have a very diverse primary meta inside of Destiny 2. We have hand cannons, auto rifles, pulse rifles, bows, and all sorts of different weapons that can actually compete pretty well inside of the sandbox right now. Rapid fire pulses are in a pretty unique spot because they don't necessarily have the fastest time to kill in the game, but they allow for a very aggressive playstyle, and you can really start to ramp some of these weapons up. And once you get the ball rolling on a damage perk with one of these, it can really shred the enemy team. Now, taking a look at the actual perks that are available on the Darkest Before, I like to build all of my pulse rifles a certain way. Looking at the barrel column, I always like to go with Arrowhead Break. This adds a massive plus 30 recoil direction and a little bit of bonus handling as well. Now, a lot of people will say you don't need to do this. You could run a counterbalance mod if you're really trying to make up for that recoil direction and you want the extra range. You can certainly go about it that way, but I'm pretty weird. I do prefer to still run Icarus Grip on my pulse rifles. There are times where you can go for some jump shots with these. They fire very quickly and you can be sort of spamming some shots. Even if you're in the air, it will let you clean up some kills every once in a while, and I feel like Icarus Grip is not a bad choice for some of these weapons. You can, of course, like I said, go with counterbalance mod. You could even run a full auto retrofit mod on these, which is a very unique option. You can just hold the trigger and basically turn this into an auto rifle. So it's going to be up to you, but I do prefer Arrowhead Break on almost every pulse rifle that I use. But moving on to the second column of Darkest Before, we of course have the two staple options here. We have high caliber rounds and ricochet rounds. Both of these perks are going to give us a nice bump to range, and of course ricochet rounds does give us that added stability. It's going to bump us up to like 62 stability here. However, high caliber rounds is a very compelling option on a rapid fire pulse because you're firing so many bullets at the enemy. This is going to cause increased flinch. It's going to make it much easier to duel and win your 1v1s with a weapon like this if you have high caliber rounds. So I highly recommend going after high cal on any pulse that you can get. As far as the other perk columns on Darkest Before, starting in the third column here, there's really a couple of interesting options here. Now, by default, you will see we have Quick Draw, which is never a bad option, even on a primary weapon. This is going to make it so you can swap back to your Darkest Before easier, and so you always have it ready for you in combat. But we also have the perk Slide Shot. That did make its way into the perk pool from that original vanilla roll, but to be honest, I don't find it being that useful anymore. It only puts about 6 bullets back in your mag. It's not even enough to get a full kill on an enemy. It does give you that slight boost to range, but by the time you're firing your second or third burst, the benefits of Slide Shot have already worn off and you're not getting that range benefit at all. So it's still there. It's not a bad option to have, but there are other ones that I would prefer. You could even go with something like Subsistence, and we'll talk about why, because in the fourth column, there's really only one perk you're going to want to go after on this weapon, so we'll talk about that in just a sec here. Now, moving on to that fourth column, the one you're going to notice right off the bat is, of course, Rampage. Rampage is going to make it so we can get a stacking damage bonus on this weapon, and once you get the ball rolling with it, it absolutely shreds at 1, 2, or 3 stacks of Rampage. Unfortunately, I myself do not have a roll with Rampage yet, but I have tried it out before. I have friends who swear by this perk on this weapon because it really does ramp up the damage a lot. It makes it much easier to lock down those kills. Highly recommend going after this one if you're chasing Darkest Before. The roll I have actually has full auto built into the weapon, so it's kind of nice. It's a nice quality to have on a rapid fire pulse. Not necessarily making the weapon better in any way, because you can still shoot it just as fast just by clicking or pulling the trigger on your controller. But I would say on rapid fire pulses, it's probably one of the few weapons in the game that can actually benefit from this perk. And of course, we do have it available as a mod, so it kind of makes the perk useless if you really want that full auto. All in all, I really love the Darkest Before. I think it's a very strong, compelling option. However, it may be sort of outshined by the Peace of Mind. The Peace of Mind has some incredible perk options on it, and it may make it more of a better dueling weapon for things like Trials of Osiris or 3v3. The last thing to point out on the Darkest Before is that with this roll I'm using here with Arrowhead, High Cal Quick Draw Rampage, and a Range Masterwork, we're getting about 33 meters of range. So it does experience damage drop off at 33 meters, and that's in part due to the 17 zoom on this weapon. It actually has a lower zoom than the Peace of Mind, but we're going to dig into that a little more. Now let's go ahead and hop over to that Peace of Mind pulse rifle and take a look at what makes it a very compelling option as well. Now, I did recently do a video talking about the Peace of Mind pulse rifle. This thing is actually incredible, and one of the best things about this pulse rifle is the fact that it's a craftable weapon. If you put the time into pursuing this weapon, you will get yourself the 5 out of 5 god roll that you want. You'll be able to craft it and curate it exactly the way you want it. This is a seasonal weapon that is part of Season of the Risen. You can unlock it by doing Psyops Battlegrounds. You do need to level up 5 patterns before you can unlock the craftable version of this weapon, but I promise it's absolutely worth it because this thing is incredibly strong. Taking a look at the perks here, we are going to apply that same philosophy from the Darkest Before. I do recommend going with Arrowhead Break. It's going to greatly help out the recoil direction on the Peace of Mind, taking it from a 58, which kicks to the right really hard, all the way up to an 88 recoil direction, which is almost completely vertical. So it's very beneficial on this weapon. It's going to make it much easier to hit your shots and control your weapon and win your duels. I highly recommend Arrowhead Break for this weapon. In the second column, same story. We have high caliber rounds and ricochet rounds. It's really up to you, but I do recommend high caliber rounds on these rapid fire pulses. It's going to make it much easier to duel against enemy players. Now, in the third and fourth columns, there are some very interesting options on the Peace of Mind. You can get the perks Perpetual Motion. You can also get Heating Up. Both of these are fantastic for PvP. Different perks for different play styles here. Heating Up is going to be very good for things like sixes, where you can consistently go on a tear, where you can be always chasing the enemy team. You have plenty of targets to chase, and it's really easy to get Heating Up rolling and keep it going throughout the game. Perpetual Motion is a nice passive bonus that's always working for you. It's going to give you stability, handling, and reload speed at almost all times, making the weapon just feel better as a whole most of the time. Now, in the fourth column, we have some interesting choices as well. We can go with Moving Target, which is going to give us increased movement speed and target acquisition while aiming down sights. That's a fantastic perk for 1v1 dueling, especially in places like Trials of Osiris, if you're taking this weapon there. However, I do prefer to use Adrenaline Junkie. This is a stacking damage bonus, much like Rampage on Darkest Before. However, this stacks up to 5 times. They do end up giving the same damage multiplier. They cap out at 33.3% extra damage. Adrenaline Junkie just has 5 stages to get you there. Each kill will give you 1 stack of Adrenaline Junkie on the weapon, or if you do get a grenade kill, you will immediately be bumped up to that 5-stack cap. If you're running a grenade build, if you're using Axiom bolts or trip mines on your hunter, Adrenaline Junkie can be an incredible perk if you're frequently getting grenade kills, but even if you're not, that added damage bonus is very nice in places like 6v6 because it's easy to get it going to 3 or 4 stacks and really be tacking on some extra damage. You can also go with Vorpal Weapon or Harmony. These are great damage perks as well, very consistent options. The important thing to point out about Peace of Mind is that obviously this is a crafted weapon, meaning all of these perks have enhanced versions. You can see we have Enhanced Perpetual Motion, Enhanced Adrenaline Junkie, and while it's not necessarily the biggest game changer in the world, it can be a nice little edge to have on your weapon. It's going to make it perform just slightly better than other weapons that have these perks. Also on the Peace of Mind, we have the Land Tank Foundry perk, which is the new thing that just came in the Witch Queen. This makes it so final blows with this weapon grant increased resilience, which in PvP will make it so it's harder to kill you. It only lasts for a few seconds, but it can make it easy to go from kill to kill. If you're fighting multiple targets, it will give you that little bit of added resilience. I don't know how much it's really going to help you out, but it is there and it will proc every time you get a kill. The final thing to point out is that the Peace of Mind has a 19 zoom, where the Darkest Before had a 17, so you do get slightly more range on the Peace of Mind. This has 51 range total with the way I have it built, but we don't experience drop off until 36.5 meters. So even though we technically have less range than the Darkest Before had 54 and Peace of Mind has 51, we do get more range because this weapon has a higher zoom factor. So that's something to keep in mind as well. It's not really noticeable in game. The scope on the Peace of Mind is much different than Darkest Before, but it is noticeable when it comes to damage drop off. So which one should you go after? I think both of these pulse rifles are very, very strong. Rapid fire pulses are really strong in the game right now. Even if Darkest Before is a bit of a nostalgia trip for you, it really is a strong weapon. And the Peace of Mind is an absolute beast. I'm sure you're seeing this everywhere. It's a very popular weapon. It's been performing very well in trials the past few weekends, and it's really easy to go get your hands on. I would say if you're really trying to lock down a great weapon, go after the Peace of Mind. You can guarantee yourself a 5 out of 5 god roll. It will respect your time. You will end up with the weapon. Going after Darkest Before is more of an RNG pursuit. You do have to get lucky on that final boss in the Prophecy Dungeon. You can farm it. It is unlimited. You can continue to farm that boss over and over and over again until you get the roll you want, but it is a less deterministic pursuit than the Peace of Mind. Both great options, both fantastic pulse rifles. Let me know which ones you guys prefer, which ones you're going after. Let's talk about it down in the comments. Thank you guys for stopping by, and I will catch you in the next one.